A prisoner swap that's happened between Iran and the United States. 5 Americans who had been imprisoned in Iran have been freed and have landed in Doha in Qatar before flying off to the United States. These Americans were wrongfully detained and held hostage in Iran for several years. The Americans were finally freed as part of a wider deal that includes the US unfreezing $6 billion in Iranian funds. US has said its citizens were imprisoned on baseless charges to be used as political leverage. 5 Iranians imprisoned in US jails on charges of violating US sanctions were also freed as part of this entire swap. Now, the release of the Americans brings to an end a years-long nightmare for those who had been detained. Earlier, President Joe Biden celebrated this release of the 5 Americans. It also represents a significant diplomatic breakthrough after years of complicated indirect negotiations between Washington and Tehran. Here's a report.
The United States waived sanctions to allow the transfer of $6 billion in Iranian funds from South Korea to Qatar, a step needed to carry out a previously announced US-Iran prisoner swap. That's according to a US document seen by Reuters on Monday. The broad outlines of the US-Iran deal were made public in August. 5 US citizens detained by Iran would be allowed to leave in exchange for the transfer of the funds and also the release of 5 Iranians held in the US. Among those detained in Iran are US-Iran dual nationals, environmentalist Morad Tabaz, and businessman Siamak Namazi. According to the State Department document, Secretary of State Antony Blinken determined that waiving these sanctions was in the US's national security interests. And the document said the transfer of frozen funds would only provide limited benefits to Iran, since the funds can only be used for humanitarian trade. The document was sent to US congressional committees. It marks the first time the government has formally acknowledged it is releasing 5 Iranians as part of the agreement to secure the freedom of the 5 US citizens. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller could not confirm the exact date for the swap.
It is a process that is ongoing. We continue to work towards the full release of the American citizens that were detained in Iran that have now moved on to house arrest.
But the transfer of the $6 billion and the prisoner exchange could take place as early as next week, according to 8 Iranian and other sources familiar with the negotiations. The prisoner swap would mark a rare moment of cooperation between 2 adversaries who remain at odds over issues including Iran's nuclear program and US military presence in the Gulf.